Hi, my name is Aurora, and I am a cancer survivor. This channel is all about sharing my experiences, tips, and tricks that I have learned through 8 major surgeries and cancer recovery. And my goal in doing so is that others who have a cancer diagnosis or any other major illness might find ways to more easily navigate these kinds of health challenges with as much comfort as possible. So today I'm going to share with you some ways that I found to cope with one of the most difficult things about receiving a cancer diagnosis or any major illness really, and that is your mental and emotional health. This is by no means an exhaustive guide for how to get through cancer, nor is it a substitute for any kind of professional advice. I'm not a therapist. These are just some tips that helped me to shift my perspective on the emotional transformation and challenge that happens when you have cancer or another major illness. So I'm going to do 3 tips, and the first one is to give yourself permission to feel the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And because you will have to grieve a little bit through this process. And then the second tip will be how to think about your body as its own entity, not in a dissociative way, but in a cooperative, caring way, and to rethink a bit about beauty and how you value yourself and how you love yourself. And so for many of us, our lives are marked by a few major milestones: birth of babies, death of a parent, graduating college, that kind of thing. And once those milestones occur, there is no going back. Life will forever be different. There will always be a before this thing happened and an after this thing happened. Cancer is that way. Once you hear that diagnosis, then your life will be forever marked, and there will always be a before cancer and an after cancer. And for many of us, that means that you will have to mourn what is lost. I did go through the stages of grief when I got my diagnosis: the denial, anger, fear, bargaining, and acceptance. And at first, I at the time, I wouldn't have identified that I was grieving. I wouldn't have identified that I was going through these 5 stages. And I didn't want to believe the imaging results. I thought for sure it was something else. It was some other anomaly. The cancer industrial complex was trying to get money out of me for more testing. I had a lot going on in my life, and I was constantly going just full bore, always moving. I didn't want to deal with the idea that something that was outside my control could upend my life, my pace, my family, my carefully laid plans. I did not have time to deal with something like cancer. And for some people, denial can last a long time and involve avoiding a lot of testing, or maybe seeking out an excessive number of other medical opinions. But for others, it moves pretty quickly. For me, it moved pretty quickly. Once you have that MRI or biopsy result in front of you, there is no going back. You realize everything is about to change. And the thing I learned that helped me understand the denial phase, and that I hope I can apply to future situations when I'm grieving, is that the more quickly I recognized what was going on, the more quickly I could begin to adapt and make plans. The longer I questioned the veracity of the test, the longer I was waiting to get treatment, and the less chance there was that the treatment would be effective, and the greater the chance that the cancer would spread. So understanding the truth of the situation was essential in adapting to it. So if you find yourself or a loved one in this phase where they are refusing testing or getting like 5 other opinions, not accepting the diagnosis, while it's good to be sure it's correct, right? Like, second opinions may be in order, but remember that the sooner action is taken, the sooner you can shift into making changes, and it will be making changes that will empower you. So having to make those changes in my life, because I realized I have this, everything's going to change, I have to deal with it. And having to make those changes propelled me to the next stage of grief, which was anger. And once I realized that, in fact, yes, this was the real deal, not a false alarm, then the anger kicked in. And the fact that I had to slow down and cancel plans and rearrange my life and upend my finances, that was the first thing that made me angry. And I had to give things up and let things go that I wasn't ready to give up and let go of. But ultimately, the anger was a good thing. Sometimes, especially for women in many cultures, it is seen as a bad thing to be angry. And it's an emotion that we often hear as something we should control or suppress. But the truth is that it is okay to be angry. It's totally normal to be angry, and your anger is not silly, it's not childish, and it's not misplaced. It's totally legitimate. It's okay to be ticked off, that you will, depending on your situation, lose parts of your body, years of your life, moments with your loved ones, and the possibility to fulfill some of your dreams. We never know how much time we have, and there is no way to guarantee that any action we take will give us more time. It's okay to be mad about that. It's okay to be mad at yourself, too. Maybe you didn't use sunscreen. Maybe you did smoke. Maybe you put off getting that annual test. Whatever the case may be. For me, I was really mad at myself that up until that point, I hadn't taken as much time as I could have to be with the people that I loved. And again, this feeling wasn't bad. Anger isn't bad. How you express your anger may at times be socially inappropriate, but the anger itself is a valuable biofeedback mechanism. Usually, anger is a way to signal to us that a boundary has been crossed. And in some cases, it's against our will, but in other cases, it's because we allowed it. And most of the time, it's a complicated mix of the two. And so that anger for me was really necessary because it was a clarifier. When you're not angry, it is easier to be a little wishy-washy. Yeah, something irritates you. Maybe you'll make a change when you get around to it. And when I'm frustrated, I can raise my voice on occasion and my thoughts can be jumbled and I need time to make lists and sort things out. And I'm so mad. But when I am angry, I am quiet, I am clear, and I am focused. And I know exactly what I do not want and what I want. And I can clearly see what boundary got crossed. And so for me, being angry at myself about not spending time with those that I loved as much time as I could have, knowing that my time would now be shorter no matter what happened, that really, I was mad at myself because I allowed a boundary to be crossed. And that phase really helped me clearly to see what I did not want to continue doing. And so the tip I have for helping you get through anger is to embrace it. Don't try to suppress it, because the longer you suppress it, the longer that phase will go on and you won't be able to move on. You got to move through it to move on. Let yourself feel the anger, and instead of trying to stop it, use it as a tool to clarify what boundary got crossed and how you can move forward and change that. And if you're supporting someone with cancer or another major illness, or even just someone that's grieving, don't try to stop them from going through this stage. It may be uncomfortable to watch, but imagine how uncomfortable it is to experience it. It is a necessary stage, and the faster you can embrace it and move through it, the faster you can move on. So that anger for me was really important because it refocused me on what I really wanted in my life, what really mattered to me, and it caused me to completely change how I went about getting what mattered to me. And that's when I started to bargain. So once I was mad, I dealt with the anger, and then I was like, all right, how are we going to make this work? And bargaining can often take a spiritual overtone. For folks that pray, they may pray that if they are quickly healed, or if the diagnosis turns out to be a mistake or not quite as bad as they thought it was, then they promise they'll do whatever it is they feel like they should have previously done in their life. I'm not religious, so I didn't pray to be healed or make any deals with a deity or anything like that. For me, the bargaining stage was more bargaining with myself, trying to force things that I wanted to happen into existence. So, for instance, thinking that I would still be able to do everything on my list. I would just shift how I did it. I'd figure out a way. I'd still have this experience. I'd still meet that goal. I'd just find a loophole to do it with cancer. So in the bargaining phase, for me, this phase was necessary because it also helped me clarify things, but in a different way from anger. Anger helped me clarify what really mattered to me and what I wanted in my life. Bargaining helped me clarify what I needed to let go of. So I was trying to build two simultaneous realities in the same space. That I would keep everything I had and everything I was going to do, but I'd just find a way to insert cancer into it. But cancer isn't a thing that you add to your plate. Cancer is something that permeates and transforms everything else on the plate. So pretty soon I began to realize that there was just no way I could fit cancer in. I needed to step back, delegate, let go. I needed rest. I needed to let myself be taken care of instead of being the one always taking care of things. And above all, I really, truly needed to let some things go. The way I look at my body, the amount of physical labor that it will be able to do, the level of care I have to give it, how much time I'd be able to give friends, the trajectory of my career, my financial plans, all of those things. I had to release them and all of my expectations about them. And the best tip I can give when you find yourself in the bargaining stage is to understand what sunk costs are and use that as a tool to help you clarify new goals. So sunk costs are what economists refer to when talking about money or time that you have spent that you cannot recoup. So, for instance, if you have employees work a bunch of man hours on a project that flops, you can't get that money back. It's gone. It's done. And sometimes people will continue working on a thing long past when they should have cut their losses and moved on. And they justify continuing to dump resources into a failure by saying, oh, well, I've already put this much into it, so I may as well keep going. But in reality, you may as well stop because you're just wasting more time and money because the product or the situation or the relationship will never be successful. And the tendency to keep going when you should stop, that's called the sunk cost fallacy. So when you're trying to continue to pour energy into your life or the things that you wanted before you got that diagnosis, it's important to be really realistic with yourself about the probabilities of success. And for me, this was especially true with my career. It took me a really long time to realize that this thing I had invested so much time and effort into was not going to turn out the way that I thought it would. It just won't. Didn't mean that I wouldn't be successful or happy, but I wasn't going to be successful in the way that I had originally planned. And once I understood those sunk costs, I could stop bargaining. And I could make plans for where I was going to go next and how I was going to get there. But before I could make those plans, I needed to stop and mourn what I lost. Because in that bargaining phase, there will be a point where you realize this is what I won't get. This is the opportunity that is now before me. How do I make the most of this opportunity? Because that opportunity is gone. I needed a minute, and most people do, to mourn the opportunity that was gone. And that realization that I came to at the end of that bargaining phase is what pushed me over to the next phase, which is depression. And that's the mourning stage, really, mourning what was lost. And most people think of that when they think of grief. And like anger, the depression stage is a stage a lot of people, especially bystanders, are really uncomfortable with. People don't know how to respond to depression, and a lot of folks try to come at it with false positivity, which will only make things worse because it discounts how the person experiencing the depression is feeling. So for me, hearing things like, oh, it's not so bad, oh, look on the bright side, but what about this, but what about that, that is not helpful. It's not allowing me to feel the full range of emotion around a massive life event. And over time, I learned that it is okay to give myself permission to react in this way. It's okay to be sad that I will now always be scarred. I will never be able to do some things that I could do before. My legs will never work the way they used to. I will never get back the time I lost with my children during the years I was extremely ill, bedridden, and in the hospital. My life will never be the same now. Yes, I will also be healthier in the end, and there may be many silver linings to clouds along the way. But that doesn't mean that the sadness isn't real just because there's a silver lining. So it's not just good, but it is necessary to mourn the loss of the future you thought you'd have and the moments you hoped to share. And for me, that mourning was almost a way of honoring the hopes that I had to let go of and honoring the lesson that something was bringing me. And being able to honor the lessons that the cancer was bringing me and it helped me let go. It helped me let go of the things that I would now no longer have. So sadness is okay. And instead of trying to hide or cure it, the best thing to do is just move through it. And as I mourned in the depression phase, each thing I realized that I'd have to let go of in the bargaining phase, I was able to get through that sadness about that thing and get to a place where I could let it go. And it's not that I'm never sad anymore. Sometimes I still get wistful when I think about what might have been, but that sadness is momentary and passing, and it doesn't color my whole life. So as you move through that sadness, it is very important to understand the difference between allowing yourself to feel it and allowing yourself to get stuck. And for those of you supporting someone in this stage of depression, that's important too, to have that distinction and be able to understand, okay, I need to let them feel this, and then recognizing when I think they're stuck in this. This is dragging them down. They're not able to get through. And when that happens, to gently guide your loved one to get help. And if you are the person who's getting stuck in that phase, don't be ashamed to get help. Most major cancer centers in the United States have a separate cancer support or like a complementary care program that offers cancer-related counseling at no extra cost. Many types of major illnesses have nonprofits that offer similar care, similar kinds of counseling and support groups to those who've received a diagnosis for that illness. And so do not throw out all of that support information that you're given when you are in the denial and anger phase. Instead, just set it aside in a folder because you may want to come back to it later, and you may want to reach out for support to those groups if you happen to get stuck in that depression phase, or even if you don't get stuck, but you just need a little help getting through. Counselors that are trained to assist people working through challenges specifically associated with an illness are really helpful for figuring out just how to navigate things and how to move forward emotionally. So let yourself be helped. Your recovery, your physical recovery, will go much more quickly if you are in a positive state of mind. So aside from reaching out for help if you get stuck, the best tip I can have for moving out of depression and into acceptance is to let yourself feel it and then make a plan for what's next. This planning was what propelled me into the acceptance phase. And sometimes the idea of accepting something can seem like defeat, like you're giving up. But I didn't feel defeated. I felt refocused. So it took some time, but I eventually knew with great clarity what I did and did not want. And once I knew that and could release previous expectations, then I could plan for my newly envisioned future. I could move forward with a new life, new plans, new sources of joy, all of that stuff. So don't resist depression, or sorry, don't resist depression, but don't resist acceptance either. Don't see acceptance as a defeat, because it isn't. It's just a recalibration. So that's my first set of tips. I'll focus on the 5 stages of grief. And the second major tip I have for getting through the psychological challenges of illness or cancer is to shift how you think about your body. So as I said earlier, I do not mean to think about your body as a separate entity in a dissociative or unhealthy way, where you're losing a connection with who you are and what you're going through in order to avoid experiencing it. That's not what I mean. I do not mean to suggest that it is okay to feel totally disconnected from your emotions or your experiences or your body, like you are watching a person in a movie and not living your life. That is a trauma response. And if it does happen to you or does happen to someone that you love in this process, then please seek out mental health support. That type of dissociative feeling is not okay. What I'm talking about is a shift in perspective on the mind, body, spirit connection. Most of us have heard some philosophy that humans are 3 parts: our mind, our body, and our spirit, and that what happens to one impacts all 3. This is not groundbreaking, a groundbreaking theory or new. And so whether or not you subscribe to that particular philosophy, we do have scientific evidence to show that an illness in the body can impact the mind, and that emotions impact how the health of our physical body. So we know there's a connection there. And I will share with you that I have had to have muscles, skin, and fat and other tissue transplanted from some parts of my body to other parts of my body to heal scars and indentations in my body. And this did not make me feel confident. I felt like a carved roast beef, or I guess a roast beast. Humans are animals. But at one point, during this whole process, I became so ill that I was in the hospital for several weeks. I was in ICU for much of that time, and things did not look good. I lost the ability to get out of bed by myself. I lost the endurance to be able to walk. I could no longer walk on my own. I couldn't eat. I couldn't drink. I needed help breathing. My body was redirecting all of its energy to making sure I survived. And my husband would stay with me as long as he could, and our neighbors and friends did help with our kids, but he would have to leave ICU at 3 a.m. to go home and make sure to relieve our neighbors and be there when the kids woke up so that he could get them off to school. When he was gone, I would only half sleep. It's really hard to sleep in a hospital. They are very noisy places, and every time you're about to fall asleep, somebody comes in to check something, or a machine beeps, or they want to take your blood. And so I was awake and had a lot of time to consider what was happening to me. And I started to recognize my body as something that I might have to leave behind. She might not make it through this thing. And then what? Would I be reborn? We know brains and muscles carry memories and process them. Would my consciousness take those memories with me? I think it would, but I'm not really sure. If my body didn't survive this, then would I not be able to feel wind on my face again, or hug my kids again, or eat ice cream again, or hear that stupid woodpecker who, with all of his descendants, has been tormenting me at 4 a.m. for 15 years? And I begin to see and appreciate my life and my body as a creature unto itself, and to love her for what she was and what she was going through. And I realized that no amount of my thinking or my doing or my planning or my mental power could help my body. She just had to fight. And I felt so bad for her because for years I had berated her. She wasn't tall enough. She wasn't thin enough, this enough, or that enough. And some real asshat roommates and boyfriends along the way exacerbated, encouraged, and in some cases even instigated this body hate, like over the years. But did I stand up for her and tell them to shove their unnecessary opinions where the sun doesn't shine? Nope. I listened to them, and I did not support her. I tried to beat her into shape, to whip her into shape by being mean to her. And I had a long history of not really appreciating what my body did for me. But the reality of it is that she gave me 4 beautiful kids. She survived being cut open, rearranged, losing organs. She fought off infections and diseases, recovered from injuries, carried me on my own 2 legs, and helped me keep up with the kids she birthed. She worked hard to help me renovate a home and start a farm. She stayed up night after night when she really needed rest so that my brain could complete grad school and be successful at work and take care of my kids. And she allowed me to dress her in 1980s fashions. And that alone is worthy of respect. So my body did a lot. And now that she was sick and she was working so hard just to make sure she survived so that I could survive in this form too, I began to reevaluate what I thought was beautiful. Suddenly, the fact that my legs could walk to the bathroom and back with only a walker to assist me was beautiful. The day that I could finally get out of bed and just with a walker, I could walk down the hall. I'm like, yes, it was such a success. The fact that my arms could hug my children while they sat next to me in my recovery bed, that was beautiful. My scars became more like badges of honor to me, and I didn't worry so much about having them removed. And the fact that my stomach could finally process a whole cup of watermelon cut into cubes that mattered more to me than what my stomach looked like in a bikini. And so, in essence, I developed more compassion for my physical body by stepping back a little bit and seeing her for what she was, and that she's a part of me that also has her own unique job to do, and respect her for what she could do. And I just kind of stopped giving about what other people thought of her. And I realized for the first time that my body was not created to please other people. And their opinion of it was truly not worth my time and energy. So I've managed to maintain that perspective of respect and compassion for my body for a couple of years now. And I'm still working to keep it going. So if you're struggling with the fact that you've lost organs or limbs or needed a transplant or can no longer move like you used to, or maybe you can't carry children because of an illness, whatever the case may be, if you have to endure and suddenly adapt to permanent changes in your body, I recommend taking a step back and just observing yourself, observing your body for what it does, and having compassion for it, like it is a part, not like it is a part of you that you need to hack or change or perfect, but rather like it is your partner in this journey of life, and it supports you and also needs your support in return. And it's like a friend that needs love rather than constant judgment. And so I truly think that having that compassion for myself and that having that new perspective on how I fit into my little meat puppet and all the things that she did for me helped me to heal faster. And it certainly helped me to have much more peace about all of the changes that I was undergoing. So This video was a long one, but I think it was important to talk about because it's such a huge piece of the healing process. And so hopefully me sharing those things that I felt and thought and experienced will maybe give you some ideas and some perspective as you navigate your own challenges with cancer or another major illness, whether as a patient or a loved one. So best of luck. Until the next video, stay hopeful and take good care.